Welcome to Gender Decoded, the podcast where we dig deep into the data behind everyday life and reveal the gendered stories most people miss. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're taking a journey across time, not abstractly, but hour by hour, to understand how Americans actually spend their lives. Who do we spend time with? And how does that change as we age, and as men and women move through different stages of life? So let me set the stage for today's episode. Imagine if every single moment of your day, from brushing your teeth to going to meetings, cooking dinner, or watching TV, was tracked and categorized based on who you were with. Not what you were doing, but who shared your space. Now, zoom out and apply that same lens to hundreds of thousands of Americans over a 13-year period. What you'd get is a sweeping, intimate portrait of how social life unfolds across a lifetime. Today, we're diving into exactly that. Who Americans spend their time with, broken down by age and gender, based on more than a decade of survey data. You might think you know the answer: family, friends, coworkers, maybe your partner. But I promise you, there are some eye-opening patterns here, especially when we look at how those relationships evolve from age 15 to 80.
Welcome to Gender Decoded, when numbers align, seeing the stories that data defines. Breaking the barriers, truth untold, insights in gender, the data unfolds.
And there's a subtle but powerful question underneath it all. What does our time say about what we value? Or more importantly, what society expects us to value? Let's talk about where this data comes from. The source is the American Time Use Survey, ATUS for short, which has been running since 2003. It's conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Between 2010 and 2023, over 160,000 people were asked to recall every 10-minute block of their previous day. They recorded what they did and, more relevant to today's episode, who they were physically with during each of those moments. Sleeping, grooming, and personal care aren't included, by the way. This is all about conscious, waking social life. Researchers then grouped the responses into 6 main relationship categories: time spent with family, friends, coworkers, romantic partners, children, and time spent entirely alone. And what makes this dataset so powerful is that it doesn't just give us averages. It gives us a moving picture, a curve that changes with age. From adolescence through old age, we can see these social ties strengthening, fading, or transforming. So let's walk through the charts and what they reveal. Let's start with family. For teens, especially those between 15 and 20, time with family is dominant, 4 or even 5 hours per day. But this number falls off a cliff in the early 20s. By the time Americans hit 30, they're spending barely an hour a day with family. And it stays low for decades, creeping up only slightly around retirement. One notable gender gap: women spend consistently more time with family than men across the board. Now friends, this one hits hard. At 15, you might spend up to 2 hours a day with friends. But by your mid-20s, that's already cut in half. And by your 40s, Americans spend less than 30 minutes a day with friends, sometimes closer to 15 minutes. That's a dramatic drop, and it doesn't recover in older age. In fact, friend time almost flatlines past 50. For all the talk about loneliness, this is one of the most visual examples of how friendship becomes a rare presence in American adulthood. Coworkers take a different path. From the early 20s through mid-50s, they dominate weekday life. Men especially spend nearly 4 hours per day with coworkers during their prime working years. Women also spend a lot of time with colleagues, but consistently an hour less than men. This likely reflects differences in full-time employment, job types, and even hours worked. By age, 60 time with coworkers sharply declines as retirement kicks in. Now let's talk about partners, the romantic category. From the early 20s onward, time with partners rises steadily. Around age 30, both men and women are spending about 3 hours a day with their partner. But here's where it gets interesting. After age 60, men's time with their partner increases dramatically, sometimes up to 6 hours a day. For women, it also rises, but not as much. and the gap becomes more pronounced with age. This could reflect differences in life expectancy. Many women outlive their male partners, and also different routines and caregiving responsibilities in retirement. Children. This one tells the parenting story in clear numbers. From the late 20s to about 45 time with children grows rapidly. But for women, it peaks around the mid-30s at nearly 6 hours a day. For men, it's just over 3.5 hours. That's a huge gender gap in caregiving time, roughly 70% more for mothers. After 45 time with kids drops steeply and almost vanishes by age 60. The child rearing window is intense, but short. And finally, time spent alone. This one climbs, slowly, steadily, and relentlessly. Teens spend about 2 hours a day alone. That rises through adulthood, but after age 50, solitude takes over. By age 70, Americans are spending more than 7 hours of their waking day alone. Interestingly, men tend to be more alone than women until around age 70. After that, the trend flips, and women become more solitary, likely due to widowhood and longevity. Now let's zoom out. This chart is not just about social categories, it's about trade-offs. At every stage of life, our time is being pulled in different directions. In our 20s and 30s, work takes a bite out of friendship. Children take a bite out of partner time. And slowly, age takes a bite out of everyone until solitude becomes the default companion. What we see is that men tend to spend more time with coworkers and alone. Women spend more time with children, family, and a bit more with friends. But perhaps the most striking thing is that, for everyone, friendship and family time shrink dramatically as work, parenting, and aging take over. So what does this mean? First, our time is socially structured. It's not just personal choices, it's shaped by policies, expectations, and norms. Why do moms spend twice as much time with kids? Why do men spend more time alone after retirement? These are not just natural outcomes. They're reflections of how society divides labor, values caregiving, and supports, or fails to support, social connection. Second, it tells us that friendship is the most endangered category in adulthood. That drop from 2 hours to 20 minutes should alarm us. We talk about the loneliness epidemic, but here's the data behind it. And lastly, it reminds us of something quietly profound. You can't save time. You can only spend it. And the people you spend it with say a lot about the life you're building or the life society steers you toward. Thanks for listening to Gender Decoded. Today we trace the social arc of a human life, 1 hour at a time. If this made you think about your own time differently, maybe reach out to someone today, a friend, a parent, a partner. Time might be short, but it's also what makes relationships real. Until next time, take care.